Welcome to Across Africa, France 24's weekly roundup from around the continent. Coming up in this week's edition. The International Criminal Court drops war crimes charges against Kenya's deputy president for lack of evidence. William Ruto had been accused of orchestrating deadly post-electoral violence in 2007. Timbuktu's ancient manuscripts are back in Europe following ongoing extremist threats. Half a millennial ago, the Malian documents had been smuggled out of Spain for similar reasons. And a long-lost queen finally returned to her subjects. A Mwapo mask looted from Angola during the civil war is handed back to the country's ambassador here in Paris. It was the second time Kenya's top politicians were targeted by the International Criminal Court, and it ended in another mistrial. Like the president before him on Tuesday, Deputy William Ruto saw the crimes against humanity case against him collapse because of lack of evidence.
Sharing the news with his friends and family, William Ruto was all smiles. The International Criminal Court in The Hague dismissed the case against the Kenyan deputy president, citing a lack of evidence. His co-defendant, broadcaster Joshua Sang, almost broke down in tears of joy.
I love you people. I love you Kenyans. I love you. Thank you, God. I'm free. Free.
The two men had stood accused of 3 counts of crimes against humanity during the 2007 post-election violence, namely murder, forcible deportation and persecution. Both of them denied the charges. In Ruto's political base, Eldoret, crowds took to the streets to celebrate the court's decision.
They went for the wrong people. So at least we can now see that justice has been done. Although the victims are crying foul.
Around 1,200 people were killed and hundreds of thousands were displaced in the bloodshed following the disputed election. The closure of the trial comes as a disappointment to the victims, although many have turned the page.
If that child was still alive, a jail term for these men would have brought some comfort. But now, whether they're jailed or not, my life still goes on.
The judges at the ICC, however, refused to acquit the defendants, allowing for a fresh trial to start in the future. They said heavy political interference and witness intimidation might have been to blame for the lack of evidence.
In 2014, Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta also had charges connected to his alleged role in fatal post-electoral violence dropped. France 24's Mark Perlman spoke to the Kenyan leader this week about claims that a lack of cooperation and political meddling from Nairobi hampered the ICC's case.
Those are accusations that they continue to hold, but they do not tell the world that Kenya, throughout this whole period, the prosecutor had free access into Kenya at any time. They had full offices running with no interference, with the full cooperation of the state, despite the fact that I was president.
They're lying?
Absolutely. And we have said, with regard witnesses, a lot of the witnesses, they themselves moved them. They were based here in Europe, a good number of them. Yeah? And what they claim as interference is because people recanted their evidence. And that, again, is in line with what we had always stated, that these cases were politically instigated cases, and these individuals eventually just came up and said, I was told to say such and such, and I am no longer willing to continue with those lies. That doesn't mean that they were interfered with. They just came up and told the truth, which was in line with what we had been stating from the very beginning. We are insisting that the ICC is no longer following the basic tenets that we all supported when it was being created, when the Rome Statute was being created, that they have gone against that, that they are not necessarily following proper legal jurisprudence, but rather being pushed, yeah, to follow specific cases for reasons that are unknown to a lot of us. And this was the reason for our disappointment. So our argument has always been, and we have pushed this argument at the state parties, we have pushed this argument at the Security Council of the United Nations, that unless this organization is reformed, right, to be able to focus itself on what it is supposed to be doing in a fair and balanced manner, we in Kenya and we as Africans need to then pull out, because we cannot have a court that is pursuing agendas other than that which that organization was legally constituted to do.
Guinea has one of the highest maternal and infant mortality rates in the world. Though delivery services and cesarean sections have been free since 2011, more than half of the country's women struggle to get the medical help they need around the sensitive days before and after their due date. Our correspondent in Guinea sent us this report.
This tiny boy was born just 1 minute ago by cesarean section. He is cleaned, then warmed. These moments are critical for the delicate newborn.
This helps prevent hypothermia and infections.
The baby and its mother were lucky.
If she had tried to give birth at home, she would have had a uterine rupture. She would have bled out and died right there.
In Guinea, 679 women die for every 100,000 who give birth, a staggering ratio even among other poor countries in the region. More than half of Guineans give birth at home without medical assistance.
Parents wait too long before deciding to send the woman to the hospital. It's difficult. Even if they have a car, the roads are rocky and poor. Once they arrive at the hospital, there are problems getting them care.
To help improve care, 400 health centers have been refurbished and their staff trained. Here in Fora Moria, 80 kilometers from Conakry, Marie-Madeleine receives 14-year-old Astou and her 40-day-old daughter, Salamatu.
You see, her lips are open and the chin almost touches the breast. We go into the community to meet the women there and to explain the importance of giving birth at the hospital and the importance of postnatal visits.
This center is very important for me. I didn't think I would become a mother this young. Here I was able to give birth and they are taking very good care of my baby.
Despite these efforts, the needs remain immense. In Guinea, there is just one midwife for every 20,000 people, 4 times less than the amount recommended by the World Health Organization.
Some of the priceless Timbuktu manuscripts are finally back in Spain more than 500 years after they left. In one of history's ironies, religious intolerance forced the documents to be smuggled out of Toledo. Now, similar extremism is sending parts of the precious collection out of Africa and back to Europe. Our correspondents report.
When jihadists captured Timbuktu, the Kati family fled, taking these ancient manuscripts with them back to Spain. Ali Ben Ziad, a Muslim nobleman from Toledo, started this collection of writings in the 15th century.
These were the manuscripts that the family used to have in the library at the Toledo Mosque. And it's this library that was taken out of Toledo and sent on its way to Africa to save it because of the Christian intolerance back then.
Collected over years, the manuscripts are made up of more than 12,000 documents and are historically invaluable.
We've got one manuscript from Ceuta, a manuscript from Egypt, and a manuscript from southern Algeria, the biography of the Prophet.
Ismail is in charge of conserving this treasure. When Timbuktu fell into the hands of jihadists in 2012, he sent the manuscripts to friends in Mali and fled to Spain.
Whether we're Christian or Muslim, we can both be intolerant, and the Kati Foundation Library bears witness to the constant extremism of different religions and different cultures.
While most of the manuscripts are now being kept in safe places in Bamako, about a dozen are in Andalusia, where they're being painstakingly restored and analysed.
You can see, for instance, that in this treatise on mathematics, the main problem is we've lost large parts of the book because of humidity.
The documents will be numbered, translated and studied. They'll then be exhibited in cities in southern Spain before travelling to Toledo and perhaps one day to Timbuktu, if calm ever returns to the jewel of the desert.
A long-lost monarch has been returned to Angolan hands. A 19th century mask that was looted from the Dundo Museum in the last century has been officially handed over to the Angolan embassy in Paris. It was tracked down by art historians on the hunt for missing pieces of the continent's heritage. Ben Barnier tells us more.
A Luanda queen at last to be returned to her kingdom. This 19th century Moana Poa mask was stolen from Angola's Dundo Museum at some point during the 1975 to 2002 Civil War. It spent years in the hands of an American artist and was passed on to a private collector in Paris until this French art dealer working for the Sindicato Colo Foundation spotted the mask in an ad for an international fair.
The dealer didn't know that it was a mask from Dundo. So as soon as we had that information, we called him and say, listen, there is a problem with that mask. You're going to have to do something because you can't sell it. It has been stolen in the Dundo Museum. Of course, he didn't know and say, no problem.
The recovered mask is one of 5 looted works from the Dundo Museum tracked down by Sindicato Colo. The foundation tries to buy stolen pieces from art dealers and private owners below market value with one goal in mind: returning the precious masks and statues where they belong.
Our national identity comes from our language, our songs, our poetry, our food, our art, our music, our dances. It is very important for Angola to get back all the works of art which were exported illegally from our country.
This mask will be displayed in Luanda for the 40th anniversary of Angola's independence. Meanwhile, the Sindicato Colo squad will be on the lookout for more stolen works of African art.
And that's the end of this edition. Do stay with us. There's more news coming up on France 24.